Welcome to the Business Buyer Diaries. My name is Nathan Platter. I'm a full-time employee, and I bought a business. I did everything right, from finding the deal, handling all the due diligence on 63 opportunities, and ultimately bought a profitable gym. And boy, was I in for a big surprise as a new owner. I chronicled everything in real time, including the biggest wins to the stressful nights at 2 a.m. I'm sharing my journey without sugarcoating anything, so you don't make the same mistakes that I did. Here's today's episode. All right, well, things are getting interesting with the lender. So things are good with the deals. They're looking solid. There's no worries there. However, this is where it gets a little bit complicated. So there's multiple bank accounts and multiple entities, and it's not a clean division in how it all works out. So the seller owns, we'll just say several locations, and they're selling 2 of them to me. So of that mix, I'm buying the first location, which is owned and operated by one LLC, and that one LLC has, I think, like 1 or 2 bank accounts. Just nothing complex. It's pretty basic. The location that I'll be buying later in the year from the seller, assuming everything continues to go well, is going to be, that one is owned and operated by a different LLC. However, where it gets a little interesting is that second location is one of several locations underneath one holding entity. I think it's just one LLC. And so the lender is asking, like, hey, this first one looks fine. The tax returns for Gym A looks good and clean, but they want to have the tax returns for Gym B for comparison, credit spreads, and making sure it meets SBA criteria. So it's a little bit odd. We're not really that far down the road because we're just working on the first one before we can even start the second one. But I'm realizing this is where it can get a little bit complicated. For when you acquire a gym, it's easy to just roll everything under one umbrella. But when you want to sell it, it gets complicated because you have to start splitting apart your accounting books. So here's a real world example. So if you have a holding company that owns 5 gyms and you have one LLC and one bank account, that's quick and easy because now when you ever pay bills, you pay it out of that one account. So that's nice. But now if you're trying to sell like 2 of those 5 gyms, you now have to figure out, well, of all my bank account transactions, was this transaction for one of the gyms or not one of the gyms? And you have to go to the next transaction. Well, was this for that gym or not for that gym? And now you have to comb through your books, top to bottom, every transaction, and divvy it up as to who gets the cleaning fee. Was that your first gym or your third gym or your fourth gym? Or was it your second and third gyms that both got cleaned that day by the cleaning company? And it's a post. I'm trying to keep it simple, but I'm trying to articulate the complexity and just the messiness. And I kind of feel bad for the sellers because, they're good guys, they're good people, and they did probably the way that I would do it. But it's now like the accounting guy has to go through. He's spending a 4-day weekend. He's doing a little bit of fishing, and then he's spending the rest of the days combing through their bank account history, figuring out expenses, which location gets it. Because that second entity, and when I say entity, that LLC, they're only selling one of the gyms in that portfolio, but they have multiple gyms all under one account. And so, oh boy, I just feel bad for them because I don't want to be in that conundrum, that stuck spot. So what I'm going to be doing, when I'm realizing from this, I definitely want to have, you need to have a holding company. You can't just own it by yourself. That's a bad idea from every person I've talked to and read from. So we'll have a holding company, which is good. We're going to have the bank account, lines of credit for that holding company, which is solid. However, I'm realizing for the accounting side, to keep it clean, I'll want to have at least one bank account per location. I don't plan to ever sell these, but I'm sure one day that may happen. But my plan is to never, ever sell these. And so I want to set myself up so I don't have a headache down the road. Having one bank account unique to each location and one checking account, one, savings account, but for sure, one credit card or one way to pay bills per account, if not a checking account. So that down the road, when there's 2, 3, maybe even 10 or 20 gyms, I'm just making numbers up, that I don't have to go through and look through years of bank statements and try to figure out which gym or which studio, whatever, got that appropriate expense, got that appropriate income, It's kind of fun. I to imagine like, oh, all the money will come to one bank account at the start of the month, and boom, there's all that money on the first of the month for membership dues. And that's an ego-driven thing. That's not a accounting smart financial way to go about it. So I don't know. I also know folks that own like rental properties and Airbnbs, and some are not smart. They own rentals and Airbnbs under the same LLC. That's a bad idea. That's two different sets of risks, one way or the other. But I also know folks that will have like one LLC per each rental, and then they own like, well, what would it be? Sorry, there's just a lot of noise going on. But they own like 10 rental properties. So like you're telling me you want to have 10 LLCs with 10 annual renewals, with 10 bank accounts, and you want to like keep track of all of that information, all of it. Like, that's just a lot of administrative legwork. Like, I don't think the benefit's really there. Just have one limited liability company, you're protected, and then just have the companies underneath that one LLC is what I think just makes the most sense. But I'm also naive. Maybe I'm wrong on that. So at a minimum, what I plan to be doing right now, having one holding company, and then that'll be the legal protection. It's its own corporation. But then having one bank account, one account only works with one location, whether that be a credit card, line of credit, checking accounts, savings accounts, that they don't commingle is the term. And that's usually between business and personal, but they don't overlap with each other. So then that way, if and when it comes down to sell one of these locations and they're sold off individually, not as a portfolio, you can now just download all the transactions for that one bank account. And you know that it's 100% of them go to that one location. It may be but then it gets messy with taxes, because now you have tax filings for part of the chip. So maybe you do need, why is this so hard? No, I'm going to scratch that. I think at the end of the day, you need to have one entity and one bank account per one location. I think that's the way you got to do it. If you're ever going to sell these as an individual, kind of like when you buy food at the gas station or grocery store, they're marked for retail sales. You don't just buy the box. So I think that's how you need to do it now. And then you just have a heck of a lot of tax returns when it comes to selling off. Yeah, because when you sell these off, you want to have at least a clean tax return. You're not going to split up everything beneath the hood. So I think it's the way to do it. And that's the way we want to go about doing it along the way too. So learning one by one at a time. And in this case, I think I'm learning from someone else's good decisions that maybe were not so great after all. But time to talk to a CPA, a legal person, and figure out what they would recommend so that I don't have the kind of headache and issues that they have down the road. This has been another episode of the Business Buyer Diaries. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. I hope you're realizing that business ownership is no cakewalk. Check the podcast notes for a link to the DIY due diligence program, the complete list of show sponsors, and for media inquiries. Music written and composed by Wes Schrock. I'm your host, Nathan Platter. Join me again on the next one.